Awesome. Well, welcome to the Pine Room Studios.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to death to be here. I'm excited.
Yes, this is so cool. You're going to be the first author that we interviewed.
Well, I will tell you, I watched a lot of your videos, did some research. I was scared. I was very, very
What
scared.
were you scared of the most?
I mean, you got to get it. Well, I didn't know it was just you. Remember that?
Yes.
So you had that whole posse with you, and I
Yes.
thought, okay.
They're not scary. They're just big teddy
they're
bears.
hilarious.
Yes, they
you
are.
all were hilarious.
It's
yes.
It's max chaos most of
Yes.
the time. Really is what's going on. So I mean, obviously, as an author, you've probably done 100 interviews now, something like that.
Wow.
You're an unbelievable writer from what we're going to talk about,
Thank
but
you.
You're just an even better speaker, and from like what you're talking about, a sales background. So
Thank you.
I mean, where does the passion for all the writing come from?
My mother wrote a lot, never published, just wrote, and then she would read it to us, or she would staple little things, and we'd have a child's book. So that was part of my growing up and things. We're Scotch-Irish, half and half Polish. Yeah. And so we're talkers, we're tale spinners. My grandfather had a story for anything you brought up. And so it was kind of comfortable. I just enjoy writing, but I always did it for myself. And previously, I wrote a lot of short stories, just little blurbs. I live in a hollow out in the country.
So cool.
Outside of West Liberty. And so I was right on the edge of the woods. There was a creek going through my property, so I saw a lot of animals. And so I would write these short stories, and then sometimes I'd put them on Facebook. Sometimes they were just for myself. And then one night during COVID, I took my laptop out to the sunroom because I was going to write another short story. And at 2:30 in the morning, I'm like, holy cow, this is longer than I thought. So then I started playing with it for 5 years.
So cool. So cool. Everybody, let's introduce our guest, Miss C.L. Johnson, Cindy Pavlik Johnson. What an unbelievable experience right now to get to come in here and speak with you. I had the opportunity to read your first book, Hiding.
Yay.
It was so fun because I just got into reading because of my fiance, all these different young adult stories, different thrillers, mysteries, you name it. And I was right in the middle of all of it, and your book got put in front of me, and they said we might have a chance to interview you. And I was like, this is one of the coolest things. So the first book, Hiding, of the 3-part series, Hiding, Hunting, and Healing, very, very big news coming out here very soon. Would you talk a little bit about that?
Second book will be published by the end of July.
Wow.
Hunting.
Wow.
So it takes a whole different angle, a lot of the twists and turns, a lot of the same characters, different setting.
So cool.
And that'll be out the end of July.
Can we talk a little bit about the first book without,
Yes.
I want to try to not spoil things just because I want to get people interested in reading it because of how good of a book it was. So I'd like to talk a little bit about it, kind of like where your passion came from, each one of the characters that you wrote about, and some of those different things. So
Okay.
kind of where did the idea come from for the first book?
Well, okay, let's go back a little bit. Years ago, I worked for Uniglobal High Valley Travel as a travel agent. Bill and Sally Bryson, I don't know if you know them, wonderful people. They gave me a great opportunity, worked for them for several years. When I left Bill and Sally, I opened my own tour company. In that tour company, I took a lot of group tours throughout the United States on motor coaches. One of the places I went, and I made it a point to always go to different spots in West Virginia. And one of the places I went to was over in the mountains, right in the middle of the mountains, Cass Scenic Railroad. And that's in Pocahontas County. And it's just beautiful. Now, if you've ever heard of the National Radio Observatory, there's a lot of mystery there. That is right in the middle of Pocahontas County, and that's what we call a silent zone in the world. And there's only a couple in the United States because we have these huge telescopes, and we're looking for whatever we're looking for way out there. We have one of the largest in the world. And so I got to tour that. And I would take 2 or 3 motor coach loads of people down to Pocahontas County. So I became very familiar with it. And it's just gorgeous. And the isolation and the fact that it's a silent zone and there's no internet. And then only antennas may be little and they have to be a certain height. And a very unique place. And so when I decided to start this short story, I thought, okay, I want to do it in West Virginia. I'm going to do it in Pocahontas County.
So cool.
So that's where that came in. Now the names, they're a play on family names, and nobody's named Camilla or Cami Sue.
Yeah.
They're not named that, but it's a play on that. My sister's middle name is Sue. My grandmother's maiden name was Rose.
Nice.
So I picked those out of the air and just plugged those in where I could. I wanted to name somebody Cindy, but I thought that's just too boring. We won't go there. So that's how that came to be. And I'll be honest with you, when I started writing, I had no idea of what the storyline was going to be. I just started writing, and I don't know where it came from. And that sounds really hinky. I know it does. But I know you've heard interviews where, especially musicians, they'll say, "Where did you get that tune?" or "How did you get those words?" And they say, it came through me.
Yeah.
And I always thought, yeah. Well, it kind of happened to me that way. It really did. Of course, once I would start with a couple of lines, then I could play off that. And like I said, I worked on it for 5 years. So I would go back and I would read it again and think, oh, I can plug this in here and I can do that. I better take that out. So that's how that came to be.
Tell us a little bit about Cami Sue's character. Obviously, the main character in this book, former lawyer, gets into a little bit of trouble. That's all I'm going to give. Tell me where the inspiration came from Cami. Please give as much as you want, because you're going to be way better at not giving things away.
You want me to read the
Yes,
blurb?
yes, please do, because I'm telling you, I'm going to start asking you questions and give things away. So I'm going to try to stay away from it. But Cami's character, so cool. Go ahead.
Okay. How do you escape when you're being hunted? Where do you go when you're out of options? You go into hiding. Camilla S. Kennedy was known as an excellent attorney, tough, tenacious, and adept at straddling the line between legal and illegal. As her reputation grew, many people sought her out, the kind of people with money and connections. The man was one of those people. It began with a phone call that led to an afternoon meeting that would change the course of her life. One day, one meeting, one blink. The day she had taken her eye off the ball. The man's power could not be matched. Once he got you, you were his. 2 years in a relationship with the man's son didn't give her the option of just walking away. She had seen too much. She knew too much. Camilla determined the time to escape was drawing near. Once he used her up, she would become a liability, and the man didn't keep liabilities. She knew she must run. She must hide. And there was only one place in the world where she just may be able to do that. She is going home to the Hollow, the place she left over 20 years ago. Now was the time for hiding.
Let's go.
Okay.
I'm ready to run through a wall right now. I feel like I got goosebumps.
The Hollow, Pocahontas County.
Yes.
So that's how the story opens. She's on the run. It tells how she makes a plan to get away. It tells a lot more than just that little blurb, but that's how it starts right there. She has to get away.
Has to.
This man owns the entire nation east of the Mississippi when it comes to being a drug lord.
Woo-hoo-hoo! I read it and I feel like I want to read it again just from that.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
So cool. I thought one of the coolest things you did in the book was, like, anytime you watch a good movie where you feel like you're inside of it, anytime you would go to her point when she was in the Hollow, you felt like you were there with her. And I thought that was one of the coolest things, because I felt like when she was in the Hollow, that's when I could really, and that's what good authors do when you read a really good book. You feel like you're in the story with them. Anytime you're with Cami Sue's point of view, when you were in the Hollow, I felt like I was there.
Thank you.
And that was so cool to feel, just because, like, you're in a new world. And that's why people love to read, right? You got to escape and go into that world. And you could smell it, you could feel it, you could almost sense, like when you were talking about the things inside of the house that she was in the Hollow. And it's so, and one of my other favorite things, so on the book, I'm gonna hold this up, the cover from the first book, Hiding, here on the front is a very important part in that bottom left. That's almost how I pictured it, but that's not how I was envisioning it. Okay. And that was so cool to me to see it, like when it all unwrapped, and I was like, wow, so that's how you see it, and that's how, and I'm going to give something away, but a real long driveway, like I kind of picture, and
tractor road.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it and man, it was just so cool to see you write that, and to kind of be in your world, and kind of try to figure out how you were writing it. So
thank you.
I thought that was so cool.
I can give you a little bit in that. Remember, I mentioned that I lived in a hollow.
Mm-hmm.
I live in a hollow, right? And on the edge of woods, and my driveway is a very long dirt road. and I have a creek running through the middle of it. And so I picked those out because those are part of my, it sounds again corny, part of my soul. I mean,
Yes.
that's it.
Yeah,
So those
definitely.
were things.
Tell me a little bit about your favorite character to write about, not named Cammie Sue. There's a lot of really fun characters in that book that you were really interested in wanting to read about again. So tell me about someone that you really enjoyed writing about.
You know, when I was reading about how you write a good book, how you write a good novel, because I had no background in it, I had there's rules, there's laws,
Yeah.
but Cindy didn't follow those. And so when I was reading about that, you shouldn't have, if you have a whole gang of characters, they can't all be your lead character, right? But I found myself writing a lot about each one of them
Yeah.
and going into more depths and things like that. Of course, SJ, Stan.
That's my man.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, he's interesting.
Yes.
There's a whole lot we can go into.
It just kept a new page in his book, just kept turning and turning. And it's like, wait, this guy's way more than what he's showing.
And we still are just scratching the surface.
Yes.
And I'm going to give you a little bit about how I got names. My husband's name was Stan.
Awesome.
So
cool.
My husband passed 12 years ago, and so that was my tribute to him.
Very cool.
Because he's gone through all 3 novels.
Yes. So cool. Tell me a little bit about kind of your process. So you said 5 years. At any point were you kind of hitting this, they talk about that writer's block. Were you ever there, or was it always just fun for you to go back and keep writing?
I really have the luxury of not having a timeline per se. I was never told by anyone or myself, you have to have this done by this date or this year or whatever.
Yeah.
And so some days I wouldn't write at all. And it wasn't because I had a block. It was just I was doing other things and I didn't have to. And then sometimes I would wake up early in the morning and it would be like, oh, yeah, I've got to go. And,
cool.
and that's a great idea. And then sometimes late at night I would do that. It seemed like in the middle of the day I get into other things. You know, there's life and you do other things. But those were my 2 really good times that I could sit down and really concentrate and write. And sometimes I would write 2 or 3 pages, and then I would get up and go have lunch and coffee or whatever, go get groceries and come back, and I'd read it that evening, and I'd be like, well, no, that isn't working. So I'd have to go in and strike a lot of it. And so it was a luxury for me to write a novel that way.
Awesome.
Because I never intended to ever make a buck off of it. It was just mine.
Yeah. Have you had that kind of aha moment? Like, has anyone read your book that you ran into on the street, or someone said hello to you and said, wow, like I really liked your book? What was that first moment kind of like?
I've had so many of them.
That's awesome.
Well, the first was whenever I finished the book and I had it in my hands and it was just for me, and I was going to give it to my 2 sons and my best friends, and that it's done. I completed it. I hit my goal. And I belonged to a small book club. And so I was pretty proud of myself when they came. So the ladies didn't know anything about it. And there were, I think, 8 of us. And so I took them out the book and handed it to them. And they were like, first of all, they praised me for doing it.
Yeah.
And then after they read it, they started calling me. And these ladies don't hold back. If it's a rotten book, it's a rotten book. And if I made an error, they knew about every error and they told me about it. And that's what I needed. But the aha moment, so that was the first one right there, when they said, it's good. It's pretty good. It's worth reading.
Yes.
But let's go down maybe 9-10 months after I had published it and had it out there and I had been marketing it and everything. And I was over at Sunny Boy's restaurant. I had gone out to the mall, and then I was coming home, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to stop at Sunny Boy's and get some lunch. And Sunny Boy's restaurant, right?
Bridgeport, Ohio, baby.
And I go in and sit down, and I'm having my lunch, and a woman walks up to me, and she said, I just loved your book.
Oh, that's so cool. It had to make your day, right? Make your month.
I still tell strangers on the street about it. It was just
that Sunny Boy.
It's like, I think the biggest deal for me is that somebody found it interesting enough to, number 1, finish it.
Yeah.
Number 2, to pay money for my book. That's a big deal.
Yes.
That's a really big deal.
Yeah.
So those are all still things that make me
Definitely.
up, 10 foot off the ground.
Yes, that's so cool. Your process, a little bit about once it was published. So, right, you have the book in your hand, and then now it's time to get people to read it. And you were talking a little bit about that before we got on the mic. What's that process look like? Because I mean, so many people don't think about this stuff behind the scenes with getting a publisher or getting somebody to actually sell the book. How's all that process actually work?
Right. So I could tell the story. I got it the way I wanted it. 5 years into it, and I'm like, okay, it's done. This is the way I want it. It's a good story on typing paper. So they call that a manuscript. So you learn something new every day. And I'm like, now what? Now what do you do? How do I get it from here to book form? So I asked a few people. I reached out to several different people that I knew had written a book before and everything. And I went online, and you can self-publish if you don't have any money at all and you don't want to spend money. You can self-publish, and that's you do your own editing, you do your own formatting, you do your own book cover, your sizing, and then binding. And then once you get the book together, then you have to do your own publishing and send it out to whoever you want to sell it. So it's a lot, and it was very, very overwhelming to me. And while I think I can do anything in the world, that was one of the ones that was just so overwhelming. I didn't want to wait another 5 years while I figured it out. So I found 3 different online publishing companies, and they're kind of a hybrid. It's not self-publishing all the way, but you've got everything done. You've got your book cover if you want it. And so I hired a publishing company. I had to pay. It was my money. And I had a local graphic artist do my book cover.
So cool.
And then the publishing company did the formatting, made the book, and what was really great was they sent it out and had it on Books A Million and Amazon Kindle. I mean, there's like 25 different sites
cool
that I can sell on.
Yeah.
But the best thing for me, the easiest part was, let's say I bought the book. That publishing company is the one that gets the book and sends it.
Nice. I feel like that helps a lot.
That took that out of my lap. So that really worked well for me. What didn't work well is self-editing. I had too many errors in the first book. They didn't ruin the story.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything. But when you work that hard on something, you want it to be right.
Yeah.
So I will tell you that I learned the lesson, and I hired an editor for my second and third books.
Cool.
So I've got that.
So cool. All right, let's talk a little bit about this second one that's coming out right now.
All
Hunting.
Right.
Is it available to the public yet?
No.
Go ahead. Let's hear a little bit about it.
All right. It's ready to be published. It's at the publishers. And I would say within the next week or 10 days, it'll be up on Kindle and then a couple of sites. Amazon takes longer to get it on their platform, so that won't be out. But I am doing a book launch at the end of the month.
Yeah, I thought this was awesome.
Thank you. And I'm doing it over at Belmont Brew Works. It's on the 30th.
Yes, yep, you're on it.
And we're going to do it. We're going to have appetizers, and your first drink's on me. Just one. And then I'm going to have books there to sell.
So cool.
So that's another way that I get it out there. So that should be all ready to go by the end of July, and we'll start there. I've already started the marketing. You guys were kind enough to say, yeah, we'll give you a platform.
Well, this is awesome. Well, yeah, Tuesday, July 30th, 5 o'clock, Belmont Brew Works. Go check it out. That's going to be awesome for you to get in front of people and talk about the second book.
Thank you.
Can we get the blurb for the second one? And while you're getting that, I wanted to show everyone the cover here for the second book. You did the same artist that did your first cover.
Yes, she'll do all
is
three.
Is doing the second one now for Hunting. So I think just while looking at this, and we'll zoom in or we'll make sure this gets posted for you. This is so cool just because how the first book was written and where it takes place. You can look at that cover and you envision it, right? And you can remember a lot from the book by just looking at the cover. Now looking at this cover, completely different. Like I see buildings in the background. Like I immediately think city. I see palm trees. Like I'm thinking somewhere either out west. She was a lawyer in the Northeast in the first book, so I don't think that. I don't think that she's back in in the Northeast. So this is so cool. Like, I'm excited to see where she ends up, what's going on. This is a really, really good portrait of what's to come.
Thank you. I'm going to tell you a lesson I learned about that cover. I had my graphic designer make the second. I gave her a good input.
Yes.
And I loved the first cover where they had the silhouette of the head and it was a little mysterious. So I kind of moved the graphic designer toward that. I wanted it.
Yeah.
And remember, I told you I hired an editor who's fantastic. She does way beyond editing.
That's awesome.
So after I got that cover back from the graphic designer, I sent it over to the editor, and I was really excited. I'm like, what do you think? What do you think about this one? And she went, well, it's a really, really nice cover. Is it for a vacation or something? And I said, what? And she said, this tells you nothing about the book. So that was a very big lesson.
Yeah.
I just never thought, I just looked at it as it was a pretty cover.
Yeah. Yes.
So then we went back to the drawing board.
Oh, so this isn't the first one that you had. That's on the final version.
That I submitted one, and I was considering one.
Yeah.
My editor said no.
Wow.
No.
How about that?
And thank goodness she was there.
Yeah.
Because you'd be sitting there saying, I'm not really sure what this is all about. On this, you can see, okay, she's got the gun. It's got to be the same woman because we got the silhouette and all. But like you said, you can see the background. You can see it's a different environment.
I'm already excited to figure out what city she's going to be in and like what is going on right now with you. So I mean, this is awesome. But go ahead. Let's hear a little sneak
all right,
peek.
I'll give you the book blurb for Hunting. Hunting picks up a year after Hiding concludes, with drug kingpin Frank Matthews in prison and Cammie Sue settling into her new life as a government agent. Her trusted team includes those she knows well, her mother's lost love and her long-lost sister, new friends met while she was on the run, and unknown strangers to her, all part of a complex undercover mission to take down Meadows' drug network. However, unbeknownst to Cammie Sue and her team, Frank Meadows remains keen on revenge and has a plan of his own working to undermine their investigation. Calling on his deeply planted criminal underworld roots, an unexpected alliance and betrayals navigate the obstacles that the team faces, testing Cammie Sue's determination, her relationships, and the intel they have on the network. Cammie Sue's survival depends on her and her team's ability to adapt while remaining on mission to untangle the complex web before them.
Wow. Here we go. I'm locked back in.
Yeah.
Round 2, baby.
Yep.
Here we go. I already feel like there's going to be more action in this. Like the first book was action and thrills, but I feel like the second one now is like, hey, strap in. You're going for a ride. So that's awesome. There we go, Cammie Sue. Welcome back.
I got a preview here. If we have time later, I'll
So
read
cool.
you that.
So tell me a little bit about how long it took. So you finished the first one. Were you writing that second book before the first one was even published?
I was, based on the chapters and what was happening, I had the story. The first one, I remember I didn't have the story. The second one, I have the broad story.
Cool.
So, no, I didn't start it. I didn't put pen to paper until I completed the first. Because remember, the first was just going to be for me.
Yeah.
And if it was really crummy, I wasn't going to go back there. So whenever I got all the great feedback and that, and people were saying, come on, we want these things going on. So the second one, I knew where I wanted to start. I knew where I was going generally. I wasn't sure how I was going to tie it all together. So as soon as this one, it took me 1 year. So I started in August of last year, and it'll be out in July.
So cool. Congratulations. That's as
Thank you.
cool as
Thank
it gets. Let's say a TV, like a Netflix or an HBO comes to you one day.
I'm sure they will.
It says, hey, Cindy, this is really, really good. We want to put this on blank. Who is an actress that you would want to play Cammie Sue?
You know, several people have asked me about that. And there's a lot of good people out there. I'm not really sure who I'd go with. I think I might go with somebody that started in West Virginia.
That's cool. Yeah, that's really cool.
And see, but I don't have any say in it,
Yeah.
right? You know, it's just.
Would you rather them have, so you're going to have a 3-series book right here. Would you rather have 3 movies or 3 seasons of TV? So it'd be like 10 episodes for 10 episodes for hiding, 10 episodes for hunting, 10 episodes for healing, or 3 movies.
You know what? If we're going to dream big.
Yes.
And we're going to have it in that theater on the
Let's
big
go.
screen.
Let's go.
And we're going to do 3 different movies of it, and I'm going to be a billionaire.
Yes.
There you go.
I'll be on that front row like this. I'll be cheering. I know how the first one ends a little bit, so that's my next question. So they talk about these authors when it's time to produce their book as a movie or a TV show, and it either being spot on or the producers having a little bit of twist. Like you always hear people say, oh, that didn't happen in the book. Like I wasn't expecting that. Where would that sit with you if someone tried to do that with you one day?
That kind of already happened. Not a lot, but whenever it went to the editor, the second book, not the first, the second, when it went to the editor, and the way that she works is wonderful for me because, and I'm sure that it's probably every author is this way, she didn't change anything. She would submit suggestions,
Cool.
thoughts. What about this? So there were things that I had it in place and like, yeah, this is how we're doing. And then when she would submit that, it'd be like, oh yeah, okay, that works.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that if it works, it works.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it is just a story.
Yeah,
So
so
you
cool.
can spin it however you want.
So cool. Give us a little sneak peek. Is this chapter 1, right?
No, this is the preview.
Cool.
Preview
Cool.
to chapter 1.
Let's do it.
Okay, 11 months ago, Frank Meadows sat on a bucket turned upside down in the middle of his cell. He always sat in the middle of the cell. He didn't have a cellmate. The warden was certain it wasn't worth the trouble him having a cellmate would bring. This meant Frank Meadows had the honor of an entire cell to himself. The other inmates saw that as another statement of his superiority, his power. The man had too much power. They had all heard the stories about his rise, what it took, what he did. Some played a part in the rise, and some were victims of it. As for Meadows, he said nothing and he did nothing. He just sat on that bucket and thought. It was clear that something was going to happen, so the inmates and the guards and the warden watched, waiting for it to begin, for something to begin. If they were inside his brain, they would know Frank Meadows was reflecting. Reflecting can be comforting, reaffirming, puzzling, frustrating, and enlightening. He knew he had to reflect on the past missteps before he made a move. He had spent 6 months on this bucket, and he had been doing a lot of reflecting. There's no comfort in his thoughts, no satisfaction, only anger, disappointment, planning. As he sat alone on the bucket turned upside down in a 6x8 cell, there were many days he didn't move. And those who watched knew to keep their distance. Some were smart enough to learn from watching him. Some were just hoping to catch something to benefit themselves when something did happen. One thing was for sure, all of them, including and especially Meadows, laid the blame for all their troubles at someone else's feet. Frank Meadows knew exactly where to lay his blame. He was going to get his revenge. His plan started to materialize the last minute he sat on that bucket, all alone in that cell. He knew who the players would be. He knew how the parts would come together. He knew the outcome he was seeking. He just didn't know when it would start, but he knew it was coming soon. Turned out, reflecting was a productive thing to do.
Wow. I felt like I was in the cell right there. Like I felt like I'm like in there, like there's a camera like shooting above his head, and it's like I can hear like a voice like speaking over everything you just read.
You're very kind.
How cool is that? All right,
Yeah.
let's go over this again one more time. So we're gonna do a book launch party on Tuesday, July the 30th. That's gonna be hosted by the Belmont Brew Works, Rick Vion over at 15 South 4th Street in Martins Ferry, Ohio.
Okay.
First drink is on Sydney, but just the first one. We're not getting hammered off Miss C.L.
Oh, you can
Johnson.
get hammered. I'm just not paying for it.
So cool. You're going to be there discussing the book signing as well, correct?
Yep.
If you're in the area, Martins Ferry, Ohio, you got to go check this out. The last thing we do with our guests is called our Fast Five. Okay. So this Fast Five, are you a brownie fan? Do you like sweets?
I love sweets.
You like sweets? Okay.
love sweets.
Our newest partnership is with Brownie House. They're out of Morgantown, West Virginia.
Okay.
If you go to yesbrownies.com Code word Pine Room, 20% off on any brownie you want.
Okay.
That's sponsored by them. The way this works is I'm going to ask you 5 questions as fast as we can. You don't get to think about them. First thing that comes to your mind, all right?
Okay.
Favorite city you've ever been to?
Hartford, Connecticut.
Beautiful. Favorite color?
Blue.
Favorite movie?
Favorite movie has got to be. Oh wow, I'm drawing a blank.
Let's skip it. Favorite food?
Italian.
Favorite drink?
Gin and tonic.
Favorite motto or saying?
It is what it is.
Let's go. Let's go. I'm ready to run through a wall. That's what I'm talking about. Everybody, Miss C.L. Johnson. What an unbelievable first book. That's Hiding. Hunting is coming out by the end of July. She's got a book signing going on at Belmont Brew Works. This was a really, really good book. And I thought it was so cool. I felt like I was inside of it. There was times when I couldn't put it down. It had me guessing. I mean, everything you need in a good thriller, you've got here in this book. So go check this out if you haven't read the first one. Get excited to read the second one. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we'll do it again.
Good.